Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Magic Morning Word with me, Clive Davis, and him over there,
Ron Scott. Hello.
How are you doing, Ron?
I'm okay. How are you, Clive?
Not bad, not bad. Yeah, business as usual.
Yeah, you don't have the corona as of yet, do you?
No, I decided to hold back. Maybe save that for later.
Okay.
Yourself?
It's on the to-do list, I guess.
Yeah. It's I hope it's not on the bucket list.
Yeah. Maybe a bucket list. Yeah, maybe the last item on the bucket list, right? I'm still doing my best to stay safe, and I hope all of our listeners, singular or plural, are doing the same.
Right. It just occurred to me, do you think that bucket enthusiasts actually have a bucket list which is just full of buckets they want to buy before they die? Like a real bucket list, like it'll have a code number like the HVN37/blue or something like that. Do you know any bucket enthusiasts, Ron?
I can't say I do, Clive, no.
Okay. If you're a bucket enthusiast, let us know.
Why are you listening to this podcast? We don't talk about buckets, usually. And usually we don't talk about buckets.
No. Maybe we should. Maybe that's what we're doing wrong.
That's a real niche market there, right? So.
Yeah, I mean...
maybe you could do the movie The Bucket List, and that will attract them.
But the only problem with that would mean I'd have to watch the movie The Bucket List.
Bucket List.
Yeah.
Well, Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
Wasn't he in it? Who was it? Who was in it? Morgan Freeman
and Jack Nicholson, I think, isn't it?
Huh?
Him and Jack Nicholson, I think.
Jack Nicholson, right, yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of any other bucket movies off the top of my head. If you have any favourite bucket films and you want us to talk about it, as long as they're not the bucket list, let us know.
Well, there is a... I'm just looking up now. There's a... I want to say Indian movie, I believe. Indian movie called Bucket List.
I'm wondering if it's a remake of The Bucket List.
No, it's not. It's a middle-aged housewife takes the initiative to complete the bucket list of her deceased teenage heart donor.
Sounds pretty heavy.
From 2018. Yeah. And there's a TV show from 2017 called Bucket.
Mm-hmm.
This is really exciting.
Yeah, maybe that's enough buckets for now. Maybe we'll come back to that. Put it on the back burner for now.
Right.
Yeah. So
anyway,
for the time being, then we'll push on.
Welcome to the Magic Morning Bucket.
Yes. All bucket movies all the time. Henceforth. For the time being, though, because we haven't prepared any bucket movies this time, we'll just have to plough on with what we've got. So
today we'll be doing Public Buckets and American Buckets,
Dirty Bucket,
and Dirty Bucket.
Yeah. I would watch a film called Dirty Bucket. That sounds quite good.
That sounds like a good movie, Dirty Bucket.
Yeah.
I'd watch that.
So, anyway, hilarity aside for the moment, we are continuing our connections, loose connections between episodes. So the film we spoke of at the tail end of the last episode was Peppermint Candy, right?
Right.
So my connection to Peppermint Candy was the main actor, Sul Kyung-go. So I decided to choose another Sul Kyung-go movie, and that was the 2002 South Korean film Public Enemy. Or, now this is going to be a massacre of a foreign tongue I can't speak. Gong Gong Ui Jog? That sound right?
You mean the
Korean title?
The Korean title.
Yeah.
Gong Gong Gui Jiog. Yeah.
I guess.
Your guess is as good as mine, I guess.
Yeah. I keep meaning learning Hangul is actually on my list of things to do. But I've never managed to get round to it. So
learning what?
Hangul, the Korean alphabet.
Oh, I see. Okay. Right.
I quite fancy to know that for some reason.
Yeah, I've always been really fascinated by the Korean alphabet. Like, I talked about this with my wife before, which is that I can't, at least with Japanese, even if you don't read Japanese, you can tell what is a character, where one begins and one ends, usually, right? But with Korean, I can't tell what is one character because there's many parts of one, like the circles and lines. And I was like, wait, is that one or is that two things, right? So, yeah, so I've always found
Yes, I think it becomes apparent pretty quick.
Mysterious.
I know a couple of people who sat down and studied it, and it doesn't. The reason I wanted to is I don't think it would have ever occurred to me if I hadn't had to study Japanese, but I'm sure this is the same with you. Like, coming from an English-speaking country where you only have to deal with 26 letters, and then when you come to Japan and you have to learn a minimum of 104 characters before you even get into the kanji, right? And it's then you realize, but then it's not that hard to learn those, and then you're like, oh, okay. So then when I heard there's not that many Hangul symbols, I thought, I could probably learn that in a day or two or something, and then I still don't understand what I'm reading, but for some reason I would quite like to be able to read Hangul.
Right.
One of those odd things.
I'll tell you what you should do. You should buy a bucket from Korea, and then you can read a bucket that has Hangul on it, and that will be and you can do a whole podcast just about that. It'll be really exciting.
Yeah,
just as exciting as this right now.
Yeah, that'll be a fun way to learn the language, I think, via buckets.
Like a bucket. How did you learn to speak Korean? Oh, I read it. I read it on a bucket.
I subscribe to a Korean bucket magazine.
Okay. Anyway, let's move on.
This is going well. So anyway, about 1 million years ago, I was saying that we decided to watch this movie, Public Enemy, from 2002, which is a bit of an old favourite of mine. First viewing for you, Ron?
Yes.
Okay, right. And so this is I guess it's a police procedural thriller, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah. It's a detective thriller. I wouldn't say necessarily gritty. Would you say it's gritty? I don't know if I'd use gritty as the right one, but it's a black comedy. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Dark comedy. Has gritty elements, but I'm not sure if I would call it gritty.
Right. Yes, I see what you're saying. It's an odd one to maybe like
categorize.
Yeah, categorize, and also it would be difficult to, I think, unless you knew someone's taste in movies very well. It would be a difficult one to recommend it wholeheartedly to someone, I think, because it's well, anyway, I suppose we'll get into that. Yeah, so Seo Kyung-go stars as this he's a homicide detective, right?
Right.
And I suppose he's a bit of a bad lieutenant type of. It seems as if there's a certain amount of corruption.
Right. Taking
bribes. At the beginning of the film, he's stolen some drugs. Or he's been involved. Him and a bunch of other cops have ripped off some drug dealers.
Right.
And his partner has shot himself. I guess guilt.
Yeah, there's some sort of corruption that was about to be exposed. Internal Affairs is involved, and he gets informed that Internal Affairs is involved and that he's going to get basically found out or whatever, and then he shoots himself in the car.
Yeah, and then the plot doesn't actually take that long to explain, really. So basically, he accidentally witnesses a killing, or he witnesses someone at the scene of a crime after a killing, right?
Yeah, he bumps into, quite literally, the killer who's on his way from killing his parents, right? From a murder,
Right.
And he realizes it later by putting the pieces together that he had actually bumped into the killer right after he had finished doing the killing. So.
Yeah, so this is Lee Sung-jae playing the killer, who's he's kind of like a successful. I wasn't exactly sure what he did. Was he like an investment banker or something?
Yeah,
like that?
Investment banker, I think. Yes.
Right, and very kind of concerned with keeping himself looking good and
appearance and
excelling and stuff like that, and kind of looking down on other people below him in a way, right? Who are not as successful or don't have his drive, or. But he's clearly, a psychopath because he ends up killing both his parents when his father decides that some money that was supposed to be coming to him, not all of it even, like half of it, and it's quite a lot of money, instead his father's going to use it to save some orphanage or something, right? And he goes into a kind of rage, and so he ends up killing his parents, and then as he's exiting and in his kind of disguised in his raincoat, as you said, he does literally bump into Sul Kyung-go as he's being caught short during a police stakeout. So he's looking for a place to take a dump, basically, right? So he's
he's just had the dump.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He just had a dump, and then he gets bumped, and it bumps him into his own shit. So
yes.
Yeah, which seems to be a bit of a theme with this actor, where he ends up having there's always one scene where he's got shit on his hand.
Was there shit in his hand? Oh yeah.
Yeah, remember?
Oh yeah.
He was interrogating the prisoner, and ends up with the shit on his hand there too. Right?
Yeah. I hadn't thought of that, but I'm gonna have to go through the Sul Kyung-go filmography now to see how many times he gets shit on his hand. I don't think he got shit in his hand. He played Ricky Dozan in the film Ricky Dozan, and I don't remember him having shit in his hand there. Not a very interesting film, unfortunately, even though Ricky Dozan's kind of an interesting guy, but Sul Kyung-go is good in it, as always, and he speaks Japanese really well in it. Like, I don't know if he learnt it phonetically but his Japanese is very, very good in that film.
Right.
I assume he just learnt it for the film, but anyway, yes. So he basically knows that Lee Sung-jae is the killer, but of course he doesn't have any evidence at all, right? So then I suppose the rest of the film, more or less, it's a battle of wills, right?
Yeah, it's a cat and mouse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. With our homicide detective, who kind of, as the film progresses, we kind of figure out that I'm not exactly sure what he was, but he mentions a couple of times that he was a gold medalist of some sort, right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm assuming maybe for some kind of like martial sport, like judo or something, or something like that, because he's a pretty good fighter, right?
Right.
And he mentions almost as if he kind of started at the top in the police force. He was like an inspector or something. He seems like he was almost like a token kind of posting or something, like a celebrity.
Right.
But clearly he's not cut out for the job, so he's been like slowly demoted over time, and he's even demoted kind of during the course of the film to being a traffic cop, right?
Traffic cop, yeah.
So he's a very kind of disheveled, disinterested seeming guy. They mention that maybe he's estranged from his wife and kids, and obviously has money problems. So he's very much an anti-hero, isn't he?
Right. Yes.
Very much an anti-hero, but he's
quite a slobby.
Yeah. Kind of a dick as well, really.
Yeah. Perpetually angry.
Yes.
Just unlikable guy, all around unlikable guy, but
perpetually angry, aka Korean. Apologies to any Korean.
That was me.
That was Ron imitating my voice. He's been working on his Welsh accent.
I physically and socially distance myself from that comment.
Right. Yes. I'm only joshing you, Koreans. Please don't kill me. So, yes. Actually, it's a shame. If we were in the same room together recording this, actually, we could have done a Public Enemy themed podcast while during the podcast we hit each other over the side of the head and kicked each other off chairs.
That's the other thing. I made note of that. It was made a very common. I don't know if it's a Korean thing or if it's like a Asian thing or something, but because I feel like I've seen it in Japanese movies too. But like they hit each other so much.
Yeah,
so much head slapping.
It is very much a Korean thing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Three Stooges must be huge there.
Yeah, I guess there's so much. Just is it funny or is that a normal thing? Like, do people do that, or maybe it's just that actor he does it because you did a lot in Public Candy did a lot too. So.
Yeah, no, we'll get into this a bit, but no, it is certainly it has become a Korean cinematic trope, I think.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't necessarily think it has any basis in reality, but
is it meant to be funny, or is it just sort of like, do people actually do that in real life? Do people hit each other that much there?
I don't think so. I might be wrong about that. I mean, they do. There's certain things like.
I just want to say you just said do.
Yeah. That was me being funny, and if you were in the room, I'd have hit you over the side of the head at the same time, just to amplify the comedy.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't know. I mean, they do that thing where, you know, like it's a punishment, like for kids or something. You know, like go stand in the corner or do something. They do that one where they put their arms behind their back and they like rest on their forehead. Have you ever seen that? Like, so they're like in a
vaguely.
They're like
okay.
they're like a inverted V or a bridge, right? But all the pressure is on your forehead.
Okay.
Which looks really painful. But I know they do that. That's kind of like a discipline that they do in school or the military or something like that. Like
right.
You didn't do your homework, do that stance or like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Is it a punishment?
Yeah. So there's that. So I haven't spent enough time. It's possible they slap each other around. I don't know. Again, if you know, let us know. But it's definitely a cinematic trope. And I was wondering if maybe this film had a little bit to do with the creation of that trope. Maybe. I don't know. Because this was a massive hit in Korea.
Okay.
And, yeah, almost every other kind of cop thriller out of Korea that I've seen in the intervening years, has its fair share of slapping people over the head, kicking them out of chairs, and that noise that they do. That's like the only word I know in Korean is Shiba.
What does it mean?
Shiba, I'm not sure, so I don't even know what that means, but I think it's like fuck or shit or something. They do it all the time in Korean with Shiba, and sometimes it's Shiba shi, so like fucking something, but there's a whole lot of Shibas in this film.
Right.
And that kind of yes, the kind of it's like exasperation or something, isn't it? It's like I can't believe what this person's doing right now. Yeah. So I don't know if it's some of it is words, and then some of it is just kind of exclamation noise, I guess, or
right.
Our familiarity with the Korean language is really shining through, isn't it?
I didn't know I needed to learn Korean just to talk about this or something. I wasn't aware. Sorry, I didn't realize I had to do that homework. So
right. So so that's it plot wise. we'll jump into bits and pieces of interest or whether we liked or not like. But first of all, Ron, I would like to ask whether you enjoyed this movie or not. What did you make of 2002's Public Enemy?
Yes, I enjoyed it quite a lot. Yeah, it was quite fun ride. It wasn't. I thought at first it would be kind of a mystery, but it's certainly not a mystery. You know who the killer is. You see him do the
right.
Yeah, so it's more just about sort of like the interplay between the two of them.
Yes.
And almost the killer almost sort of like toying with the detective, and I was a little shocked how unlikable they made the detective, because he really was just not a likable guy, because you were really supposed to root for him, and I was like, right. I don't really care if this guy wins.
Oh, really? I mean, I know
you do because the killer is so unlikable,
yes.
And of course you really want him to get, but at the same time, I almost sometimes felt myself wishing that someone else would catch it, because I was like, right. Why is this guy like? Yeah, so but they certainly went out of their way to make him as as uncouth and as that you really have to work to like him.
Yeah, which is what I kind of like about it. Actually, I appreciate that. I'm a bit of a sucker for like a proper kind of anti-hero.
Yeah, I am too. But I was just.
And he's got such a twisted morality as well. In like what eventually kind of drives him to catch him more than anything else is, how dare you kill someone for no reason?
Yeah.
Not like that you've killed someone. It's just you didn't do it for a good enough reason.
Yeah. So I'm gonna fucking
Because
then of course he did have a reason, and he figures out the reason later, right? So, but he didn't. He was talking about the guy in the at the buffet, right? When he kills the
yes. Oh yeah, because he does kill a couple of more people as well.
Yeah. So just to fill the viewer in who hasn't seen it, or the listener, or our listeners, is that the killer originally kills his parents, again, as we said, because his dad was going to take away the money that he was going to give him, that he was going to invest in this company that was going to turn into a lot of money, and so he had planned to make his investment that was going to make him a lot of money. And then the dad decides he's not going to give him the money, and then he's going to lose it on this huge investment and make a lot of money. So he kills dad and then mom, just for the sake of it, I guess, because mom was there.
Right.
And but then he sort of starts to go a little more unhinged, where he gets knocked into by a guy at a buffet, like a lunch, like a restaurant.
Yes.
And this guy kind of bumps into him and spills his soup. And he kind of apologizes. He's nice about it. He apologizes, but then sort of like laughs it off. Like it's a bit of an uncomfortable laugh, and he makes him really, really unhappy that this guy's laughing. Like, you think it's funny?
Yeah.
And then he sees him go off, and he's eating lunch with the guy eating lunch with his friends. And he's laughing again, and it makes him even more angry. So he basically follows the guy home and just stabs him in his home just because he spilled the soup on him, right? So,
and I think more than that as well is because just before they have their interaction, he's kind of looking over at this guy putting lots of like carbs and junk on his plate. Whereas he's having some lettuce and some milk, right? And he's you're not looking after yourself.
Or you look down on him, right?
So to have him laugh at him is unacceptable, right? That this person would have the gall to kind of
bump him and then laugh about it. And laugh it off. It was really interesting to see him kind of come unhinged that way and stuff. But
right, he's also. Seo Kyung-go is excellent as always, but he's really good as well. Lee Seung-jae, I think, is good as the killer.
Yeah, I thought he was quite good. I think he really, really nailed that role. So I really enjoyed the movie all the way through. I was a little surprised at the ending.
Right.
So do you want to talk about the ending a little bit?
So, well, I mean, what's obviously spoilers. Don't go beyond this if you want to see this movie. What was surprising about it for you?
Well, I just didn't think that's how they would end it. I don't know. Anyway, so the ending was, of course. Do you want to summarize it?
No, you go for it, and then you can kind of explain what you kind of.
Well, they finally meet each other. Finally finds him, and then they have this kind of a showdown.
Yeah, and they beat each other up.
And then, Huh?
They beat each other up, right?
They beat each other up, and then
toe,
the detective basically beats the killer to death, right?
Yes. It seems to be all very close to death, at least. I mean, I
think he was dead. I'm pretty sure he was dead.
Really? My inference was that he beat him within an inch to his life, but he was still going to survive and go to prison.
Really? Oh, I thought he was definitely dead.
Oh, you thought he was dead?
Yeah. Because then he just sat down and had a cigarette, and that was the end, right? So
right.
He was sitting on his body, right?
Yeah. For some reason, I figured he wasn't dead, that he would come to at some point, but he'd caught him. I suppose you could go either way with it.
Again, that changes the ending, I guess, right? So that's what was surprising to me, that he would kill the killer, right? So it seemed a little bit like, I don't know. I didn't know how I felt about it, because, the whole thing was like, how dare you kill somebody for no reason? And I guess he had a reason for killing this guy, but killing the killer, right? Because
right.
At the same time, but then maybe he wasn't dead. So I don't know. I mean, that my kind of reaction came to the assumption that he was dead. So,
okay, well, you might be right. I mean, I know what you mean a little bit about the ending seeming ever so slightly abrupt.
Underwhelming. Yeah, abrupt and a little underwhelming. Like I was
right.
I wanted a little bit of like a denouement or some sort of like a epilogue of some kind,
Right. It's like it's painted itself into a bit of a corner or something.
Yeah, and like after all this, he finally catches him, and then he beats him up, and he's either dead or he's not, and that's the end, right? So I was kind of I kind of wanted something, a button at the end to say what happened, And so
I think it might be because I think the joy of this film, directed and produced by Kang Woo-suk, is it's not so much. I mean, the story is, nothing fantastic, really.
It wasn't breaking new ground or anything, but it was well done, though. Well acted.
So I think the pleasure in it is that the way it's played out, and it's the performances. I think more so than the story. So I think you just kind of. I was just really enjoying watching it. I was just watching it unfold, and then when it comes to an end, it's just it's finished. It's like. Do you know what I mean? Rather than it just ended, and now I'm not enjoying it anymore because it's finished, kind of thing. Whereas I think even though it's a fairly long film, it's like 1 hour and 18 minutes long. 2 hours and 18 minutes long. It didn't feel over long to me, or I didn't get bored or anything, because for some reason I was. Even though it's odd actually, because a lot of it covers the same, like if you see the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of this film, you've kind of seen the tone for the whole film. Right. It's basically, someone does something, someone else goes, I see, gets angry, hits them over the head, and then they go, I see, back at them, and the people do that for the rest of the movie, right? It's basically people getting exasperated and annoyed with each other and hitting them over the head, and then, but for some reason that's enough. Like, it's just really fun. It's got you got Kang Shin-il plays Seo Kyung-go's superior officer, and then you've got a couple of good bit parts from people who became regulars in the series, because there were sequels as well. There was Lee Mun-sik, who was the guy who played Mr. Math.
Right, Mr. Math, yeah.
And
that was also kind of a strange thing, because it was like this real tough. Like super gangster guy who comes in and shows off how tough he is, and then he just gets beaten to a pulp by the detective, like he was nothing, right? So I was like, well, what was the whole point of the show of force? For, I guess to show how tough the detective, I guess, is.
Right.
I just thought there was going to be more to that story, but there wasn't.
So there's Lee Mun-sik, and my favourite is Yoo Hae-jin, and he's the guy who plays the knife expert.
Oh yeah, who stabs himself. Yeah, he's funny. Yeah,
he's great. He's got such a brilliant face for cinema. It's just fantastic. Yeah. And he also has my favourite line in the film, at least according to the subtitles. And I remembered this line for the past 17 years since I first saw this film or whatever. It's my absolute favourite line in the film. And it's when he's kind of having an argument with another guy and they're just kind of, trading barbs or whatever, And he says, "I ought to stab your belly and sing the national anthem." Which, for some reason, I think that's just genius. Just the thought of disliking someone so much, not only would you stab them, but then you would
sing the national anthem while you do it.
Brilliant. I really hope that is the original line in Korean. I have no idea, but
maybe there's some translation versions of it means something else, or to sing the national anthem or something. It's an idiom or a slang or something.
It could be. I mean, I remembered it from the first, so obviously, and the version I saw had slightly different subtitles, I think. But that line was the same, so I'm assuming it is what he says. And yeah, but whether it's a common, I've never heard it before, but it's.
Yeah.
I've always wanted a chance to use it in conversation. Like, the thing is, I'm not a very confrontational man in general, so I need to get into an argument.
Stabbing people.
Oh, you'll come back. You've just temporarily frozen there. Okay, you're back.
I'm back. Yeah, sorry, I froze for a minute.
You were just saying how much you stab people.
Yeah, I love stabbing people and talking about how much I want to sing.
But it is.
I argue that in the conversation at least once a week. So.
I wish I could. It's one of those lines I'd really like to be able to pass off as my own.
Steal.
Yeah. It's like.
But overall, I thought it was a quite enjoyable film. It was very well acted, well written, well directed. Yes.
I suppose the thing we haven't actually mentioned out loud, but we've kind of danced around, but we should probably kind of just say it straight, because I suspect people might not, when they read the plot synopsis, and it's really funny, isn't it?
Yeah. That's all I'll say. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be sort of like a gritty cop drama, and I was surprised how funny it was and how black the humor was. It was really quite black.
Yeah, but what's interesting, it doesn't have that. It doesn't have the weird peaks and troughs, kind of Hong Kong style tonal shifts. I don't think somehow it manages to. It all seems to kind of gel together, right? It doesn't seem like, it's not like, oh, this bit over here is violent and scary, and then suddenly there's a joke, and you don't feel like you're being bounced around tone wise, like.
Right.
It's a consistent kind of tone, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's consistent. So they wrote it quite well. It's very 5 screenwriters. It's hard to write good black comedy, so it was quite good.
Yeah, and I think it's because it's character based. I mean, So Kyung-go is excellent, but the whole cast is good, really. So you just kind of enjoy them doing what they do, right? It's again, this is one of those examples of a film I thoroughly enjoyed when I first saw it, thoroughly enjoyed this time. You seem to have enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
But I actually don't have that much to say about it.
Yeah, another one, like that, which is unfortunately. So, it was. I was talking a little bit last time about how I've been really impressed by Korean film in general. And so I really recently, all the Korean movies we've done, every Korean movie I've seen so far has been really, I've been very, very impressed with, especially with the not, I wouldn't say resurgence, but the increase in interest in Korean cinema after Parasite, I guess, right? So it's really sort of made me even more kind of curious to continue exploring Korean cinema. Right.
No, there is a lot of good Korean cinema out there, and like you said, there are bad films, obviously, and all the underwhelming ones, but there's at least I think from what I understand, the Korean film industry is heavily subsidized by the government, right? So I think that also helps. So, everything for a start, everything has really good production values, right?
Right.
So there's a budget for stuff. So even if something, has a kind of a controversial kind of nature to it or something like that. It doesn't mean that they've had to go the low road to get it made, or so, even films that are potentially, controversial in some way look really good, right? Like they're really well put together. I haven't seen too many like shoddy looking Korean films, at least in the last 20 years or something. They look good, right? They're really well put together.
Yeah.
For us, so that helps for a start, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, but no, I know what you mean. It is. I think you do. Once you get the taste for Korean cinema, it's it's kind of a. It's a strong one.
Right. Yeah. It's very. I mean, I haven't been disappointed yet with pretty much everything I've watched. So I've still got a few more on my list. I haven't. I've been meaning to get around to seeing the. We talked about it before when we did Old Boy. Doing the Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance and the.
Oh yes, yeah.
Those ones. I haven't gotten around to those ones yet, but definitely I will soon. I hope.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of good ones. You're nowhere near running out yet.
Right.
And that's just the stuff I've seen. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I haven't seen as well, right? So
right.
One day I'd quite like to do something actually, maybe late 90s New Korean boom, just a kind of an example of what they were doing before, the industry kind of really kicked off. I mean, they've always had a fairly busy film industry, but there's I suppose that's the one thing maybe modern viewers might slightly get bored of. There's a certain homogeneity maybe to modern Korean movies. They maybe share a certain style or look or tone or something. I mean, it's fun, but if you go back, then you can also, in earlier times there was maybe a bit more of a mix of slightly varying ways of making cinema. Then let's put it that way, rather than a more uniform kind of. But if you're going to watch somewhat homogeneous, somewhat cookie cutter, big budget cinema, I think I'd rather watch what's coming out of Korea than anywhere else for those kind of movies. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Because they do.
But I think also they're different from the cookie cutter ones that you're used to. If you're used to watching big budget cookie cutter movies from Hollywood, I think.
Yes.
I think even if they are equally big budget cookie cutter for Korean standards,
yes,
I think they're quite different from what those people would be used to, though. So
yes, but what I'm saying is even if you get used to it, they're still like it's not
still better.
Yeah. For me at least, not better, but just more to my taste. Then let's put it that way.
So so the thing is that what's the actor's name again?
The main guy.
Yeah.
Seo Kyung-go. Yeah.
Yeah, so he also has a very specific stylized way of acting. It's quite over the top a lot.
Right.
Yeah. Is he always act like that? And have you seen any movies with him in it?
No, I've seen him underplay as well. So he can do that. But it's interesting when you say, I mean, way back when we were talking about maybe seppuku, I think, and we were talking about Japanese cinema. I think we hit on this a little bit as well, that there's a very different, like, there's a certain, I don't know,
aesthetic.
It's like stage-like or something almost.
Right.
That I think Korean cinema shares with Japanese. I mean, they're different, but they share somewhat. That it is very intense and over the top, but it also kind of seems. I don't know. It doesn't seem hammy.
No, I wouldn't say it was hammy, but it was definitely big. Yeah,
big, but somehow kind of, I don't know, like it feels, but it feels genuine or something. Like
Yeah, I'm not saying it in a derogatory sense at all. I mean, I don't think it was
Right.
it was too big. It wasn't like cartoonish or anything, but it was larger than life. You know,
Right.
so,
Yes.
yeah. So and definitely definitely everyone had that element in the whole movie, but definitely him especially.
Yeah.
Which also he had in Peppermint Candy, right? So I wasn't sure if it's necessarily Korean style or if it was specifically his style.
Right. But it is interesting. I mean, if we go back to Old Boy, for example, I always forget his name, but the Chol Min-sik, is that his name? The guy from, you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, you know,
The main guy in Old Boy?
Yeah, Chol Min-sik, something like that.
Min-sik Choi, yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So, you know, some people compared him in that movie, and in general, they called him like the Korean, like Gary Oldman or something like that.
Okay.
And it's an interesting comparison because Gary Oldman is a very good actor, right? But he's at his best when he underplays, I think. And when it's over the top, like if you compare like Gary Oldman in like Leon or something to what Choi Min-sik does, it's interesting. They're both very big performances, but one looks like showing off over the top and the other one doesn't. So it does seem to be like a form of acting that's that Asian actors do that doesn't necessarily you know, it's just a different school of thought or
Right.
yeah. So there were a couple of sequels to this film, Another Public Enemy and Public Enemy Returns. I'd seen the second one before, because I knew we were going to do this. I thought, okay, I might as well watch the third one and kind of report back. And yeah, I mean, the sequels are a step down to a certain degree. There's a law of diminishing returns.
Right.
But because this character's fun to watch, I would imagine if you watch Public Enemy and you enjoy it and you like So Can Go, you would probably really enjoy the sequels.
Yeah, I was considering watching them anyway, even if we weren't going to talk about them today, but I just didn't have time. But
yeah. No. I mean, to be honest, they're pretty much the same film again.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but if you like that film,
are the killers different at least?
In the second one, I can't remember. I think the second one was maybe like another kind of wealthy kind of figure, if I remember, like above the law, thought they were above the law. And then the killer in the third one, I literally watched this like a few days ago, and I can't remember. I'll bring it up here because I wrote about it. But yeah, but I mean, you know, don't expect any variation on the theme. I mean, it's pretty much
right.
It's pretty much, especially the third one, because I think the third one was kind of made. Here we go, Jung Jae-young. There we go. Yeah, a kind of corporate villain again. Yes, that's right. Yeah, another kind of corporate villain. In the third one as well. But yeah, they stick to the formula because the formula works. And I think the third one, from what I understand, was kind of like a film that was, because the first one was such a hit, right?
Right.
And I assume the second one was a hit as well. I think maybe when the third one came out, the industry was looking for a bit of a shot in the arm, I think, and it was like, oh well, should we make another Public Enemy, because people seem to like that. And I think it did go over quite well, but yeah, they should probably not bother making any more now, I think. Yeah.
Well, when was the third one released?
I think 2008, 2009, something like that. Yeah.
Or maybe they've given up then by now.
Yes. Yeah.
There would have been one in the tens if they were making the fourth one. I guess.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I'd probably watch them. I mean,
yeah. So is that actor still working? Is he?
Sulkin Gore, yeah. He was in a film not so long ago called Memoir of a Murderer, I think, and he looked very, very old in that. He played like a really old guy, and I think they put on lots and lots of makeup, and but wasn't a very interesting film. The only interesting thing about that film for me was it introduced me to I can't remember her name, but she's in the girl group AOA, and she's fucking hot, and she plays his granddaughter. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so I have no more to say about Public Enemy. How about you, Ron?
No, I think it was definitely worth a watch.
Satan is public enemy number one. Wanted dead or alive for all the crimes on this land. Killing God's children one by one. Casting affliction upon the innocent man. But as it were in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. God's righteous people must rule again. So you're bound to be captured in the end. For it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for wickedness to enter the kingdom of God. I say, look what you've done to mankind. The seed of crime in our children's mind. Even the suckling on the breast now becoming an awful pest. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for wickedness to enter the kingdom of God. I said, Satan is public enemy number one. Wanted dead or alive for all the crimes on this land. Killing God's children one by one. Casting affliction on the innocent man. Beelzebub, I say.
But to finish up, I'd like to read something.
Okay.
As a transition.
Okay.
That's my reaction. This is from this. It's a really shitty book that I found hanging around my house. It's called.
Looks pretty good from here.
It's called Spine Grinder. I don't know who about that shit. But
never heard of it.
The movies most critics won't write about.
Right.
Anyway, it's by some guy named Clive Davies. I don't know if you know him, but
no, because that's totally different from my name. Because I'm Davis, right? So
you're Davis. So this is Davies.
Yeah, it's not me. I've never heard of him.
Right. Anyway, so in it, there's whoever this guy is. He's done a bunch of movie reviews, and he's reviewed this movie publicly.
Oh, really?
So I wanted to read this.
What a coincidence!
Here. Yeah. So it says here, Kyung Gu-sol is excellent as a bedraggled.
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 I mean, I'm guessing what this guy said. Yeah.
Not bedraggled?
He's a bed dragon with a bucket.
Bedraggled, bucket raggled. bedraggled, sloppy, yet tough and determined soul cop who knows that rich, respected businessman Sung Jae Lee is responsible for the murder of his own parents. This unlikely yet perfectly realized mixture of Dirty Harry, American Psycho, feel-good fun, and pitch-black comedy put a big grin on my face throughout its 2-hour-plus running time. It remains one of my favorite releases in recent years, and it deserves much more recognition.
That's remarkable. I could have written that myself. That's
yeah. I don't know. I don't know who wrote that. It's kind of poorly written, but anyway. But that's neither here nor there. But,
I beg to differ, Ron. I think it's magnificently worded, and everyone should buy a copy immediately of this fantastic looking book.
If you are interested, you can find a copy on Amazon. I think that's where I found mine. Or is it on Amazon?
Well, I wouldn't know because I don't know what it is. But yeah, if you say so. Yeah.
But have a look at Amazon. Called again, Spine Grinder. By Clive Davies. I don't know why. Yes, Davies.
Right. Checks in the post, Ron.
Right. So anyway, so I read this little blurb here, and when I was thinking about what I wanted to use as my reaction pieces, and I thought, well, why not go with this guy's reaction ideas?
Right.
He specifically compared it to Dirty Harry and American Psycho.
Right.
I didn't have movies for feel-good fun and pitch-black comedy, though, so I thought I'd just go for the first two.
Right.
So I thought, let's pick those two. So I thought I hadn't seen American Psycho in many, many years, and also I'm ashamed to admit that I had never seen Dirty Harry.
That is surprising.
Yeah, because so it's Dirty Harry it's one of those movies that has always been sort of in the cultural zeitgeist and so oft quoted that almost I felt like I had seen it.
Right.
I couldn't remember if I had actually seen it or not, but as I started to watch it, I realized that, hey, I've actually never seen this before. So
that's good. That's good because that brings me to when we talk about it. I'm glad you're bringing fresh eyes to it because it's a bit of a film that's difficult for me to weigh up objectively, but that's quite a common thing. I mean, the other good example that struck me was many years ago. I was talking to my wife about the film Jaws, and she didn't quite understand why I was like, for some reason Jaws came up. Oh fuck, I haven't seen Jaws. Jaws is I was just yeah, great. And she was just I don't get it. And then it struck me, you're mixing up Jaws and Jaws 2 and Jaws 3 and Jaws Revenge.
Sequels, yes.
Yeah, and you don't really kind of have an idea. You're just, it's that vague kind of...
It's that shark movie.
Mega mix of, and,
shark movies.
Yeah, and the sequels are rather poor as well, so it's kind of understandable. So I was like, against, like, she fought me a bit there. She said, I don't know what fucking watch. So no, I promise you. So, we sat down, put the Blu-ray on it, watched fucking Jaws, and then she was like, oh, okay, no, this is fucking amazing, right? This is great.
Actually, that exact situation you just talked about is something that I've been meaning to do because I've heard randomly recently, like a lot of people talking about Jaws as it's the perfect movie. You can't. It's basically it's the perfect movie, it's the most perfect movie ever made, and blah blah blah. So and I don't know if that's really the case, but I haven't seen it in so many years that for me it's also been mixed up with the sequels, and I know it's just that. That shark movie kind of. So I need to go back and rewatch it.
I mean, you know me and my horrible elitist ways, Ron. I take no joy in it. I would much rather say, no. This 1963 black and white Czechoslovakian film is far superior to Jaws. But no, I got to admit, Jaws is fucking brilliant.
Yeah. But I did like that 1963 Czechoslovakian film. It was Jawski, I think it's called.
Jawski, yeah, there we go. Yeah.
That was Jawski was actually quite good. So
yeah, I wish that was a real film.
So I thought, okay, well, I'll call this Clive Davies guy on his parallels on his NLC. Let's see if it really does hold up as being these two movies.
Right.
So I started with American Psycho. Actually, I kind of mixed them up, right? Because I had to watch them.
Well, hang on now, Ron. In the next episode, you're going to have to have a reaction to the last film of this episode. So, which way around do you want to do it?
Well, I have an in for that, so let's not talk about that now.
We don't have to talk about it. But what I mean is, the one at the end has to be the one you referred to.
Yes, I know. So I have a fix for that.
Okay. So
we'll talk about that later. So
okay.
I'll talk about that in the next episode.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay.
So anyway, what I was thinking is, so I decided so American Psycho. I hadn't seen it in many years. So let's start with American Psycho. It is no particular order.
Okay.
So American Psycho from year 2000.
99.
99. Filmed in 99. I think it was released in 2000. But
yeah,
anyway,
right at the beginning, like January or something. So
right. Yeah. So it was it's technically right at the beginning. So starring Christian Bale. And written by Mary Herron and Guinevere Turner, based on the novel by Bret Easton Ellis, and directed by Mary Herron, one of the writers, which I thought was really fascinating because American Psycho has been long lambasted for being so misogynistic and woman-hating, and is actually like
the film.
Yeah. Well, I mean. It is, but it is to on purpose, right? It is. So.
Well, no, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that because I hadn't heard that.
Gloria Steinem apparently hates this movie. Hates the book.
Wait, no, I was going to say that I understand I know the book came into a lot of criticism, but I hadn't heard that about the film before. Is that
I don't
the case
know
of the
film.
film?
But that's why I thought what I thought was interesting was that the book was thought as very misogynistic, and yet it was directed and written, and the screenplay was written by two women and directed by a woman. So I thought that was an interesting take on it. Also, interestingly, as I said, Gloria Steinem hated the book because it's really misogynistic. But I actually didn't know this until I did research for this, that Gloria Steinem is Christian Bale's stepmother.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So she was married to Christian Bale's dad years ago. So it's,
no, I didn't know that.
Real interesting bit of trivia there. So anyway, also having starring such people as Justin Theroux, Josh Lucas, Jared Leto, Samantha Mathis, Reese Witherspoon, Chloe. I never know how to pronounce her name. Savini. And Willem Dafoe, and such, right? So I actually had watched this, when it first came out in 2000, and I think right after that I read the book after I saw the movie. I think
Did you see it in a theater?
I may have. I can't really remember the situation.
Right. I never did, unfortunately. I was a VHS watch.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so when you finished it, you had to return the videotapes?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I think you're using that as my standard go-to. Excuse me, I want to go now.
I have to return some videotapes.
It's a great one. So I have to go return some videotapes.
Oh, what's the other one? I have a meeting with Bill Huxtable.
Bill Huxtable? I don't remember that one. Did he say that? When did he say that one?
I didn't notice it, but I read it in the trivia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is it Bill Huxtable? Is that what it is? Because it's Bill Cosby. Is it? What is his name in the show?
Cliff Huxtable.
Cliff Huxtable. There we go. Yeah, I think he says, I've got to go see Cliff Huxtable.
Yeah, so it's Bill Huxtable. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, so American Psycho is about a wealthy businessman and investment banker as well, who's also very concerned with his appearance and material possessions and music and pop culture, but to the point of obsession where he doesn't have any. He's also quite a sociopath. Has no emotions or connection with connections or real relationships with other people. Anyway, and he's at least in the world of the movie a killer, a serial killer, which of course is both in the book and the movie sort of called into question as to whether or not he really is the killer the whole time. You don't know if it's in his head or if it's hallucinations or blah blah blah, but no, that's either here or there. Anyway, but he definitely is an odd guy.
right.
And and so he
brilliantly played by Christian Bale. I have to admit.
Brilliantly, yeah. So, and I was really interested about. I read a bunch of trivia about this after I saw the movie because I had seen it in years. And Christian Bale apparently was almost unknown at this time.
Right.
He was not almost not unknown, but he was not. They apparently the producers pushed back against his casting because they wanted someone bigger than Christian Bale, which is kind of funny in retrospect, that you wanted bigger than Christian Bale, who's.
Well, I think he'd been like he'd been the child star of Empire of the Sun, and then he kind of seemed to disappear, to audiences at large, at least. Like
yeah.
People wouldn't have known his name, I don't think. And even back in the day, they would have said that kid from Empire of the Sun, right, rather than known him by name, I think.
Yeah, he was in Newsies, I guess, Newsies and Swing Kids and like those in the 90s, and he played Laurie in Little Women in middle 90s. He had some parts. He was still around.
Was he in Little Women, was he?
What's that?
Was he in Little Women, was he?
Yeah, he was Laurie. He was like the main guy that ends up is in love with Winona Ryder, but ends up marrying her little sister. He was also in Velvet Goldmine. Yeah, I mean, he was around. It was in Midsummer Stream.
I'd forgotten he was in Velvet Goldmine. I suppose that would have been pre-American Psycho. That was like
it was. Yeah, this was all leading up. Velvet Goldmine was 2 years before.
The big one. The big one for him would have been Velvet Goldmine, I guess.
Velvet Goldmine, and also he was in Midsummer Night's Dream with Kevin Kline. That one in the late 90s and stuff like that. So I mean, he was around. He was still working, but he just wasn't. He hadn't really hit. I guess really too big. I think this probably was his really big breakthrough, I guess.
Yes.
And also another bit of interesting trivia I thought was really funny was that he apparently, first of all, he'd gotten the role on a handshake with the writer-director, Mary Herron, and then the producers wanted to cast someone else. They wanted to cast like Leonardo DiCaprio, I think, or Ewan McGregor, I think were the two big names that were, and Ned Norton, I think were the big ones that were.
Leonardo DiCaprio would have been terrible in this part.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that would have been bad. Yeah, so maybe Ed Norton could have done it, but anyway. So I thought Christian Bale was quite good at it.
I can't imagine anyone else in the role, really.
Yeah, I think that was the idea. Was that after it was done, no one could imagine anyone else doing it.
Right.
But interestingly, apparently, he had difficulty playing this character, and his inspiration for playing the character was watching Tom Cruise give an interview on David Letterman. So apparently that he was like this real like aggressively friendly person with nothing behind his eyes, which is the idea.
That's a good description of Tom Cruise.
But anyway, so through this movie, it's just a series of almost vignettes of him killing random people. He kills homeless people. He kills Jared Leto, who's a kind of a rival businessman at the company that he has better, has a better apartment and better business cards than he does, and stuff like that. So he and takes his apartment as a way of as a kind of a killing pad, and he brings back like he gets prostitutes, and he has a very famous scene where he has a threesome with two prostitutes, and then beats them up, and then
or does he?
Or does he? Well, he imagines he does, right? So they leave, and then he tries to get the same prostitute later. And she says, "I don't want to like the last time." And then
that scene as well is kind of a good example of the kind of the tone of the film at large as well, right? Is he has this three-way, but he's more concerned with looking at his own reflection.
Exactly, that's what I mean. So he's looking at himself flexing in the mirror while he's
rather than enjoying the sex. Right?
Enjoying himself, yeah. So that's I remember that image has stuck with me for 20 years, like that, after him just like flexing in the mirror and watching himself as he's having sex. So it was really stunning. So he did a quite good job there, and I especially really like the scene when he killed Jared Leto, and he's like. And he goes in these things where he's in his killing mood. He starts talking about pop music, like either like Genesis or
really bad pop music as well.
I guess 88 popular music of the 80s, Whitney Houston and Genesis and Phil Collins and Huey Lewis and the News. And
Robert Palmer. Yeah,
very funny. It's very funny. Again, it has an element of black comedy, right? So.
Oh yeah, I mean this film is hysterical.
It's very funny. Yeah. And then he's engaged to Reese Witherspoon, who's also this kind of like vapid socialite who has this kind of loveless relationship with her, and he dumps her, doesn't care. And his secretary by Chloe Sevigny,
Savini, yeah.
Savini, is kind of obviously in love with him, and then meets her on a date, and almost kills her with a nail gun, and so it kind of crescendos to at the end where he's imagines he's being chased by this helicopter and SWAT teams and stuff, and pulls up in his apartment. He calls his lawyer and he confesses everything, and then the next day he sees his lawyer, and his lawyer says, "Oh, that was you. That was hilarious." And then basically says that, "Oh, you couldn't have killed this person because I just had lunch with them." And so you're left, as the character is, unsure if anything has actually been real or if anything has happened.
Right.
Yeah. So, which I read a little bit about Bret Easton Ellis's reaction to the movie, which was he said he wasn't unhappy with it, but he thought it was unnecessary because and what the big difference was that he pointed out was that in the book, even when the murders are happening, you don't know if they're real,
right?
Because there's the narrator is such an unreliable narrator, and it's so like a dreamy, and like you don't know people's real names and if it's a real person, and because it's so unreliable all the time, you don't know if anything is real the whole time you're reading it.
And so much of it is lists as well, right?
Yeah,
lists of his skin
the movie
care.
Kind of puts, the movie kind of takes the idea that everything is completely real until the end, and then it's almost like a twist ending. Right?
Well, that's interesting. I mean,
or at least that's what Bret Easton Ellis says.
Yeah, but I think Bret Easton Ellis maybe. Well, number one, he's a bit of a twat.
Well, yeah.
But an interesting twat. I'll give him that. But also I get the feeling he maybe didn't watch this film more than once, and I think this is a very sophisticated film, and I don't know where you stand on this. I actually think it might be an improvement on the book.
Oh yeah, so yeah. I'd have to read the book again. Yeah, so because
right. I mean, I remember the book. I mean, the one major difference from the book to the screen, which I guess fans of the book took against, was it's much less violent. Right, like the book is so much more violent, and the deaths are like really horrible, like
very gruesome, and
like a rat being put up someone's vagina and having to eat its way out and stuff. Like it's proper misogynistic, right? Like like this film is almost. It's interesting that you mentioned that the fact that it's written by a woman and directed by a woman, and it's almost taken it in a different direction. I think the film is about something else, maybe in a way, than the book is. Do you know what I mean? Like the I think the problem with Bret Easton Ellis is I think he's written so many books about vacuous people we should say this is set in the 80s as well, right? But he's written so many books about vacuous people in the 80s and the kind of soulless existence, and he's clearly drawn to that on a certain level, right? So I think there's and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's almost like a form of self-criticism or something. But I think the kind of vacuous kind of lusting after brands and also the kind of the misogyny and the racism and the elitism that goes on. I think there's a certain amount of that Bret Easton Ellis maybe has craved, like it's something about himself that he hates. I think. So I think what's clever about the film is that there's a lot more distance. I think, like reading the book is a bit of a. You haven't read the book for a while, neither have I. But did you think the book was really good or mediocre, or did you remember?
I can't really remember what my reaction was to reliably anyway. So yeah, right. What was your reaction?
I think it's a good book, but I don't think it's a brilliant book. I think it's one of those books that probably isn't necessarily going to date that well. Like, I can see why it was the talk of the town when it was new, but I'm not sure if it's actually a great piece of writing. But it's certainly a zeitgeisty, shocking piece of writing, and quite good for what it is.
Right.
But I think the film almost takes it to a different like I don't know how to explain it. Like, the book kind of wallows in its own filth to a certain extent, right? Which is nothing wrong with that, but it's just I think it was smart of them to, rather than do a straight adaptation, they decided to kind of, well, the book it already exists, so we don't need to do that. And to be honest, we probably wouldn't get away with doing it on screen anyway.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So why don't we kind of take it a different way?
They originally had like an X rating because of that threesome scene, and they cut 18 seconds out of it, which reduced it to an R. So I mean,
so obviously even in its uncut version, they went nowhere near the shit of the book, right?
Right.
Which I think was probably the right. I mean, I'm not sure if I'd necessarily want to see, like, oh no, I'd love to see that, but it's just I don't see I don't see what would be gained from just making a straight up adaptation of the book, if you see what I mean. It would almost become what it was condemning, if you see what I mean. I think the film kind of moves the conversation on, like it takes it to another step, and I think they did a brilliant job with adapting it. And it's a great script, Guinevere Turner's and Mary Hannon's. And Mary Hannon's direction is fantastic as well.
Yeah, I think she did a very good job.
Considering it's like her second feature, right? After I Shot Andy Warhol.
Which
was kind of interesting, but this was a major step up for her, I think.
Too bad that she didn't really, I mean, I guess she had other movies after that, but she never really broke big, I guess, that much, right?
No, the best film other than American Psycho, I think she also did with a Guinevere Turner script, was the one they made after this, the Notorious Betty Page with Gretchen Mol. Did you see that?
No.
That's very good. That's a very, very good film. And then, what else did she do? The Moth.
Now she just directs TV shows, basically.
The Mothman Diaries or something like that.
Right, yeah.
Which was okay, and then she did a
Diaries.
Yeah, there we go. And she did a Charles Manson film just recently, which kind of wasn't very good. Although it did have
Charlie Says.
Yes, although it did have Matt Smith from Doctor Who as Charlie Manson,
right?
Who's really good as Charles Manson. Oh, yeah. It's kind of worth seeing Matt Smith as Charles Manson because it's very good casting.
It is interesting.
It's not what you'd think.
I like Matt Smith a lot.
Yeah, but it's not who you'd think of, right? As Charles Manson. But he's very good. He's the best thing about the film, I think. Yeah. But anyway, So do you recall when you first saw this film, Ron? How did the ending strike you? Do you remember what you thought of it?
I think, I feel like probably the same way it struck me this time, which is that I just want, what happened? Was it real? Wasn't it real? I think it was just sort of like I think, which is the idea, and I think probably that's one of the reasons that it inspired me to read the book, just to find out if it was any more clear, but I think it was less clear than the book, actually, also.
Right, yeah, no, the book is very ambiguous.
On purpose, yeah. And I guess that's the ongoing debate about this story, book and movie, is whether or not it was real or not, and so that's all. Right. And it's left very considerably ambiguous that you really don't know.
Really, I think it definitely didn't happen. I don't think there's
Didn't? Really?
I don't think there's any ambiguity to it at all.
Really? Why is that?
Because if it did happen, it would be so ridiculous, like the throwing the chainsaw down the stairwell. So that's what, when I first saw this.
Well, I got the impression that there may have been some real real things. You know, that it was some things were hallucinations or exaggerations, whereas some might have been real, right? You know, like the, you know, killing the homeless guys and stuff like that. You know, it totally could have been. You know, so
I think the beating of the prostitutes might be real, just because she has such an adverse reaction to him next time.
And the second time, exactly, right?
Yeah. But no, the first time I saw this movie, in fact, I think this movie, I don't think I was a sophisticated enough viewer to appreciate this film the very first time I saw it, because I would have been, whatever, 21, 22 or something.
Right.
And if, like we were when we were younger, by and large, we were raised on a diet of kind of, you know, slightly moronic Hollywood films.
Right.
For us, like, the events in the film that happen, the ridiculous ones, like the shooting the police car and explode and stuff like that. The thing is, we're so used to that being passed off as genuine in film.
Genuine, yeah.
I think the first time I watched the film, I kind of went with it thinking, oh yeah, films do this all the time, so I'm not... and I wasn't sophisticated enough a viewer to laugh, like, to immediately think, oh, hang on now, the joke's on me, kind of thing. And I did have to watch the film a second time before I got it. But I think if I was an older, wiser person the first time I saw it, I think I would have got it straight out the gate. But I didn't appreciate American Psycho until I watched it the second time, I think.
Okay.
Because that's when
how many views was this one?
I've probably seen it a good few times over the years. 6, 7, something like that.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, had much changed for you since you... for a start, then, did you watch it many times back in the day, or just the once, or...?
I don't think I've seen it again since the first time. Yeah, I think this was probably my second, maybe third, but I think it was the second. So, but I remembered it quite well. There was a lot of scenes I remember quite vividly. As I said, I remembered the threesome scene, but I remembered a lot of the other scenes. Oh yeah, I remember that. So it wasn't too much that was fresh for me.
So, when you did see it the first time, then, what did you think it was a really good film, or did you think it?
Yeah, I think so, but I have to agree with you. I think I was probably not sophisticated enough to fully.
Right.
But I think I did enjoy it, and I think I enjoyed it more on the 20-something level of, hey, that was good action or nice, like a horror movie kind of aesthetic, even though it wasn't really, right? So I think I was probably enjoying it more from that point of view or perspective, rather than enjoying it for the nuance that it has now. Right.
Yeah, no, it is an interesting movie that I think it does reward watching again and again. I think, and like you said, you can enjoy it on that level as well, because there's so many great little bits, like his, little hip to be square dance when he's walking around, and
the little things, I love that. Yeah,
and there's lots of great little things, and then you got, of course, Willem Dafoe being great as always, in a role that's kind of difficult to pull off well. I think, like, he doesn't have that much to do opposite Christian Bale, other than just ask.
No, it was a little bit shocking to see. Well, I had forgotten Willem Dafoe was in it, but Willem Dafoe in such a supporting role.
But he does. Not many actors would be able to.
And considering it's basically just sort of a one-note police detective.
Yeah.
He does such a great job with it.
Yeah, exactly.
He's memorable.
That's all he does, is he just goes, And do you remember anything else about the night in question? That's it.
But he's still memorable as
He's
does a great
very,
job.
very, very good bit of casting. The one bit of casting this time that I wouldn't have noticed the first time round was Matt Ross.
Which one was Matt Ross?
Matt Ross was the colleague who has a crush on Christian Bale.
Yes. Okay, yeah.
Because he is, of course, Gavin Belson on Silicon Valley.
Yes, that's why. Because I was like, who is that guy? I know that guy from somewhere. It's like, oh yeah, it's Gavin Belson. Yeah,
and he directed that movie, Captain Fantastic.
Okay.
With Viggo Mortensen.
Yeah. Vin Mortensen, which was quite good.
And back in the day as well, he played the character of Raji in. Do you remember that movie PCU?
PCU.
Politically Correct University.
Wasn't it like one of those like frat, like really like lowbrow comedy university comedies?
With the cat's meow, Megan Ward was in it. And,
right.
Yeah. Not a very good film, but he did play a character called Raji, and I don't remember. Is this? Are we in Fisher Stevens and Short Circuit territory, or
it sounds like it.
Yeah, because I tried to look it up, I couldn't find any pictures from the film, and I'm not watching it again. So
yeah, I also know him from a TV show called Big Love.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in Big Love with Bill Paxton. He played, yeah, which was multiple sister wives TV show, and he was on that. So
I tell you what,
he was miscast in this.
You miscast, you think?
You thought he was miscast in this. You were mentioning him.
No. I was saying I would never have recognized him until now because of Silicon Valley. Okay, yeah, he's got a great film. I really like it. I think he's brilliant as Gavin Belson. But I tell you who I really like in this film as well, and there's not much of him in it, but is Josh Lucas.
Josh Lucas, yeah. I thought the two of them, Josh Lucas and Justin Theroux, were both pretty good. In their, respective.
But Josh Lucas plays this this role is perfect for him. Like his mannerisms, his face, and I always remember him from this film for some reason. Like he's just really well cast, I think. Yeah, so I think this is probably a bit of a modern classic. I think.
Yeah, I think I'd forgotten how good it was. I'm glad I'm glad I chose it for this, or that.
Lucky you wrote that. Lucky you read that awesome
book. Davies guy wrote about it because it really made. I'm glad that it inspired me to go back and watching it, because I don't think I'd ever considered even going back to watch it again. I'm glad I did.
Thank the Lord for Clive Davies and his awesome book.
Right, yeah. So I'm actually trying to get my wife to watch it with me. So I'm curious what my wife will think about it. So we were going to watch it. I talked her into watching it because I said I had to watch it for the podcast, but we couldn't find time to do it beforehand. I watched it on my own, and I might watch it again in the near future with my wife.
Oh,
so
you can gather the kids round.
Yes, and the kids and me. Yeah, so we can reenact the scenes.
Yeah. Again,
but it was also, I'd say, a spot-on connection from Clive Davies, because I thought that definitely his character in it, the Christian Bale character, Patrick Bateman, was quite close to the Sung Jae Lee character in Public Enemy too.
Right.
Yeah. Because definitely because the idea of the the easy to anger and the sociopathic qualities and like that scene in Public Enemy where he's trying to practice what it's like to cry.
Right.
He's big prep. He just can't get himself to do it. He's
That's a good scene.
I forgot that scene. That same idea, right? He's trying to pretend. So it was big, and then right down to the whole real concern with your appearance and
and targeting.
So that was a quite spot on parallel there. With the only exception being that Sung Jae Lee was a killer, whereas Patrick Bateman maybe was not.
Right, and targeting people lower on the social ladder, and no, I tell you, the more I hear about him, this Clive Davies sounds like a prophet for our times.
Yeah, and of course, the other thing was that the Public Enemy killer was I don't know, at first it was his parents. And it was more for his own personal gain. So there was more of there was a reason behind that killing. Right. When he started killing. And then it became more unhinged and just killing for no particular reason. Right. Whereas Patrick Bateman killed everyone for no particular reason. Which is other than jealousy or just out of fun. Right?
Yeah. The other the other film that makes me want this to rewatch as well is because I haven't seen it in such a long time, and I'd read that Nicolas Cage's performance in Vampire's Kiss also was a something that Christian Bale was.
Yes, I heard that those two. Yeah, it was Tom Cruise and
I hadn't
remember that performance. So I hadn't
made the connection before, but yes, we might even maybe do it on the show because you've seen Vampire's Kiss, right?
I don't believe I have. I think it might be another one that I may have missed. So
it's if you like your over the top Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
It's the one where there's a scene where he actually does eat 4 live cockroaches for real.
You gotta love Nicolas Cage.
It's a hell of a scene. Oh, he's on. You know, like I've mentioned this before, but you know, like how almost every Nicolas Cage film, whether it's National Treasure or whatever, there's at least one scene in it where the director's fallen asleep behind the camera and let Nicolas Cage do it.
Gone
Is he asleep? Okay. Yeah. Well, Vampire's Kiss that's the whole film. So So I'm quite keen to watch it now and see how much Christian Bale might have taken from that performance.
Taken from it, yeah. It made me. I read that too, and I was curious to read that as well. So we watched, or maybe see it the first time. So.
Did you ever watch the sequel? Well, it's kind of sequel.
No, I didn't. I didn't even know it existed until I finished watching this time, and then I went and did some research about it. And I was like, oh, there was a sequel, which was not an official sequel.
Not really,
it has, no connection with Mary Herron or Bret Easton Ellis or Christian Bale.
It's a Canadian film.
Patrick Bateman apparently is a character who has a mask on and then just gets killed off at the beginning.
Yes, exactly.
And then it's someone else.
Yeah, right? Well, it's Mila Kunis actually.
Mila Kunis, that's right. Yeah,
right.
And she herself apparently has spoken disparagingly about that movie because she apparently didn't even know it was American Psycho 2. That apparently it was a totally different movie she was filming, and then they re-edited and repackaged it and sold it as and she didn't no idea. So
they tagged on
strange.
They tagged on that footage that connected it loosely and then put it. Yeah, it was called something else. A Canadian film. It might even have been made before or not long after American Psycho, and then to be honest, it's not awful or anything. It's just not very good. And if you compare it to the original, but I understand why they did, because if they'd have just put it out under another title, probably no one would have watched it, right? But so many people would have watched that because of the new title. So fuck it, good on them. They probably made their money back.
Yeah, probably that's what they wanted. They're probably just trying to capitalize on the name.
I find it very hard to get worked up about these things, where some people get furious about it.
I think if I was Mila Kunis, I'd be pretty pissed off that they would just change the movie from underneath me, right? So, I think that's kind of very.
She occupies an interesting kind of place, actually, in kind of pop culture. She's like, she never really took off into huge stardom, but she's still managed to stick around as well. Like a lot of kind of young actresses who are initially cast because they're good looking or whatever, they get cast aside when they get a little bit older, or but she's kind of managed to retain her spot. Like she'll pop up in big movies from time to time, and
she's still got a career, so she's doing it for herself.
She's good, actually. I've always wanted to see her in something that really takes advantage, because I think she's a pretty good actress. I heard a interview with her on Mark Maron's podcast. Yes, I heard that as well. Amazing that she. You would never guess she wasn't born and bred American. Right?
No, yeah.
But she's Ukrainian, right? I think.
Ukrainian, I think. I think that's what it's on. Yeah. So anyway, so good on Clive Davies for making that connection.
God bless him.
It's almost pretty close.
Hang on. We're going to have an edit point here on.
Okay.
Because I'm going to have a slash.
Taking on my future, and they put me in a home. Starving little babies when they were on their own. They're cutting all my hair off, and they put it in a drawer. They say I'm a psycho, with a mental age of 4. 'Cause I'm a psychopath, I can't hold back. I'm a psychopath, I can't hold back. Well, they locked me in the closet, and they left me in the dark. They tied me in a bundle, they try to make a mark. They said I've got an illness, they said it's something strange. They said they're trying to cure me, I'm trying to make a change. 'Cause I'm a psychopath, I can't hold back. I'm a psychopath, I can't hold back. Put me in a home, starving little babies when they were on their own. They cutting all my hair off, and they put it in a drawer. They say I'm a psycho, with a mental age of 4. 'Cause I'm a psychopath, I can't hold back. I'm a psychopath, I can't hold back. I'm a psychopath, I can't hold back. I'm a psychopath, I can't hold back, 'cause I'm a psychopath.
So this Clive Davis fella, he's passed part 1 of the comparison test.
Yeah.
Let's see if he keeps up the.
So
the
yes,
work.
well, of course, a bit of a disclaimer for our listeners here, or listener, I don't know, is that of course usually we just do one reaction film, but this one was a bit of a special episode because I wanted to call this guy, this Clive Davies guy, on whether or not he knew what he was talking about.
Right.
No, this is just this case. So anyway, going on to his other connection, his other parallel film, Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry. So Dirty Harry, of course, the famous Dirty Harry from 1971.
The sequel,
which I believe may have been why it sort of, and of course it's in the pop culture, the oft quoted, do you feel lucky, punk, and
right. The sequel to Dirty Bucket.
What? Dirty Bucket, yeah. Dirty Bucket or Bucket Harry.
Yeah.
Again,
I would watch a film called Bucket Harry as well.
Yeah, sure. And of course, it has spawned 4 sequels, I believe. 4.
Yeah.
So there's 5 Dirty Harrys. And this is, of course, the first one. About sort of I don't know if it was really a stereotype at the time, but of course now it's the the stereotypical cop that doesn't play by the rules,
right?
That does the rogue cop that does his own thing, and that the damn it Harry, with the boss, and
right,
give her your badge, turn in your badge, that kind of idea. That I don't know if was that a trope at this point, or did this create that trope?
I think it was probably in embryonic form, right? There's probably a few examples, but yeah, this may have been, maybe not even this one. This might be like a step on the evolution, right? Like I think some later films get more into the damn it, the DA's on my ass, and I think it just gets the I don't know, gathers moss around the cliche.
It does have those elements.
Yes.
So I got found myself wondering if it was the first or one of the first, or if it was again a step on the chain. It didn't play it to the full force that I see in other movies, where
right.
it's like
damn
it, give me your badge, So it was almost like a muted version of that. So
right.
That's why I was wondering if it was one of the first ones, because I thought other ones were sort of like more exaggerated copies of that.
Right.
So,
this film's director and producer Don Siegel and Clint Eastwood would have kind of already been in this territory a little bit with the film Coogan's Bluff, where he plays like an Arizona cop who has to transfer a criminal, Don Stroud, and catch him in New York City and take him back for a crime he committed in Arizona. And it's a slightly different character, but again, he's the go alone, do it his own way kind of cop in that.
Right.
And I suppose, that connects back to the lone hero of the Western as well, right? So it's I think it's like an urban version of that kind of character,
which would have been what Clint Eastwood had done in like Good, Bad, and the Ugly and some of that, right? So
I mean, certainly a bit more. Again, there's the anti-hero bit, right? But certainly that. I mean, we'll probably talk a lot about that while talking this film. But that kind of frontier kind of spirit, where you don't tell me kind of what to do. And vigilant justice, and
right. Yeah. So again, this is not difficult movie to talk about the story. Again, it's he's a homicide detective, and there's a killer, a guy who shoots people from rooftops.
The Scorpion Killer.
The Scorpio Killer, yes.
Yeah.
And then it's again another cat and mouse kind of game where he tries to get it, and just like Public Enemy, again, spoilers for this movie, for this now almost 50-year-old movie. Can you believe it? 50 years old next year?
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it when I was watching. I was like, I can't believe Dirty Harry's going to be 50 next year.
Right.
Amazing.
Right.
Yeah. So, anyway, and then, so of course, ending with the killer, the detective killing the killer as well. That's another reason why I thought that the killer was dead in Public Enemy, because that's how Dirty Harry finished.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Scorpion Killer, as played by Andrew Robinson, who's fucking great as the Scorpio Killer.
He is, but that was another. So again, I'm coming at this with fresh eyes.
Well, no, this is good.
Yeah. So again, which it's hard to find, I guess, for this movie, I guess.
Yeah.
But I actually didn't know who the bad guy was in the Dirty Harry movie, at least for I didn't know what kind of a killer it was. I thought it was a serial killer of some kind, but I actually didn't know. I only knew like the "Do you feel lucky, punk?" and the character of Dirty Harry, but I didn't know what kind of killer he was after, what kind of story or criminal he was chasing. But don't you agree with me that the Scorpio Killer was a fucking idiot?
Oh yeah.
He was a fun villain, but what a fucking idiot that guy was. He was just the stupidest killer ever.
He's an interesting. I think that's what I kind of quite like about him. He's almost
that's one thing. It was fun to watch, but it sort of decreased the mythology of Dirty Harry as a character for me, because I was like, why can't you catch this guy? Like, what? I was like, you're supposed to be. This is dirty. Why is it so difficult to catch this idiot?
I suppose, because he does kind of catch him, right, a couple of times. I think it's supposed to be that his hands are tied, right, to a certain extent.
Yeah, but he does, of course. But of course, at the same time, he does it because he didn't do it the right way, because he didn't read the rights, and he, and shot him, and he did all this. So he should have known that too. I mean, I guess you play by your own rules and that kind of stuff, but you had to know that if you're not going to arrest him the right way, that they were going to let him go. I mean, he would have known that, right? So I was a little bit like, I feel like that has been done in movies too, where you getting out through a loophole or like that. But there are like pretty big loopholes that any cop would know, right? So I was kind of like, wait a second. Well, first of all, you would have done that at least to make sure that he stayed in the system. And second of all, you should have caught him, 2 hours ago.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway,
before we get into like details, but I'm kind of curious because I've seen this film so many times,
right,
and saw it for the first time when I was a kid on TV, and so this looms quite large in my mind.
Right. Yeah,
I was a big Clint Eastwood fan when I was a kid, and everything Bruce Surtees's photography is great, and the Lalo Schifrin score. And Scorpio Killer and like you said, the iconic, how many shots did I fire in all this?
Also was a surprise to me that I didn't know he said that twice in this movie.
Yeah.
I did not know. I thought it was just like a one-time thing, and I knew the line, but I didn't know. Actually, I wouldn't have been able to tell you definitively if it was this movie or one of the other Dirty Harry movies. Right. So I was like, I was happy. Oh, good, it's in this movie, and I saw he does it at the beginning with the bank robber, and the black guy goes, son of a bitch,
right,
great line. And then he does it again. I was like, I had no idea this was like I knew it became a catchphrase for the masses, but I didn't know it was actually his catchphrase.
Yeah. As written by John Milius, not the credited screenwriters Harry and Julian Fink. That was we mentioned Jaws earlier. Of course, John Milius as well. Famously, he wrote the the sinking of the Indianapolis story that Robert Shaw tells in Jaws. It's another one of John Milius seems to have had this other side career of writing really memorable dialogue for other people's films uncredited.
Terrence Malick also helped on the screenplay too. So
and then, but what he wrote ended up kind of being put into the sequel, the first sequel.
I see.
So with all that in mind, it's funny. I was watching this again for whatever number time it was, and I can pick holes in it. It's not that I think this is really, really amazing. Necessarily or flawless or anything, but for me it's gone so far into my brain at this point. Like I really have no idea if this is a good film or I'm pretty sure it's a pretty good thriller, right? Especially for its time. But I is it actually a classic or is it not? I don't know. And also, what really interests me about Dirty Harry is the politics of it as well are difficult for me. Like, I can easily imagine a 20-year-old seeing this film for the first time now, really hating this film. And
really, why?
Just finding it massively reactionary, right? I mean, I think in 1971... it would have been kind of subversive in a way, especially because it's set in San Francisco as well, right? And it's kind of just after the hippie dream had died and all that, and then you've got this kind of swaggering guy who doesn't give a fuck about the rules, takes justice into his own hands, and guns minorities down left, right, and centre. And there's the whole thing in it about there's that where John Vernon as the mayor, how did you know that he was going to rape that girl? Well, when you see a guy running down the street with a knife in his hand and a hard-on, I don't think he's collecting for the Red Cross, right? It's just that kind of thing. It's like, okay, I can see where you're coming from.
I think he's got a point there. Right?
yeah. Great little line there from John Vernon. I think he's got a point. But, and I think it's weird. You got to talk about Clint Eastwood. I Clint Eastwood as well has obviously become almost a victim of his own iconography or something over the years. So I think it's difficult maybe to see how this might have been quite thrilling and subversive at 1971. Like just to see this character doing all these things and I suppose nowadays it would be a little bit like trolling online. like trolling some liberals or something. But just the right side of it, for me, at least. Like, it's playful. And you kind of side with him to a certain extent, right? Like when the Scorpio killer's just like slapping kids around on the bus when he's stolen the school bus, and he's row, you're about to force him into saying and stuff. You're like, yeah, okay, this guy probably needs to be taken down, right? So it's interesting. Just for me, as a kind of really, in general, a very lily-livered liberal, most of the time. But I kind of get quite into this, so I find that kind of interesting. I mean, what did you think of it on that level? Did you kind of think of it as a particularly reactionary piece of filmmaking, or?
I didn't really think about it at that level. I was just more. I mean, again, there's been countless movies that have basically copied this movie, right? I mean, this was, and I don't have the perspective to know whether or not this was the original that everything is copied, or that if it itself was a copy of other things that came prior to it. Right. So I don't really have that much knowledge about the cop thriller in general, the genre in general. So, but knowing what I know about Dirty Harry in the pop culture, and also basically all the movies that came after it, I thought it was quite muted, actually, and that it was. I thought it was okay. It was a fun watch. I really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, okay, I can see why that movie.
Okay, I just lost
a bit of a reputation.
Okay, cool. You're back. Yeah.
Yeah, I froze Danny as well. I can see why it has a bit of a reputation, but it was, again, the fact that it was he sort of played by his own rules, but he was still kind of relatively put together. Like, he still wore a suit. He was still kind of like calm and collected. He still kind of he wasn't like the. So this is coming back to where I feel Clive Davies may have missed the point a little bit with his connection with Dirty Harry. Okay, because I don't think he was that close to the character in Public Enemy, the main detective, because I thought Dirty Harry was cool. I think that's the idea, is that he's cool. You want to kind of be like him. All the ladies love him, and all the guys want to be like him. And you're on his side. He's taking down the guys that's got to be taken down. He's unflappable. But he always looks good. Whereas the detective in Public Enemy was just unhinged. He's sort of he was like a step away from being a killer himself. And you were always on Dirty Harry's side, right? I wasn't always on the detective side of Public Enemy. I think that,
right. I see what you mean. There are definite differences. I mean, the parallels are there as well with the kind of the incessant drive. But yes, they are very different characters. Although I'm guessing Dirty Harry probably was in the background somewhere, though, for the makers of Public Enemy.
Sure, I mean, but was it Dirty Harry or just that kind of character?
Exactly,
the cop that doesn't play by the rules, right? Which may or may not have been created by Dirty Harry, also.
Right, like you said, it's entered the zeitgeist, right?
Right. And then I was also really surprised how, again, Andrew Robinson is the killer. As I said, it was really fucking stupid, but at the same time, it was also very, very broadly played. It was almost for comedy. It was so like, I'm such a bad guy. Look at me. Right. It was almost a comic in its exaggeration, and so and I wasn't sure how to take it. That if it was in the 70s, was it meant to be realistic, or was it just supposed to be like, this is the bad guy and this is the good guy? And so it was a little bit. I was hoping for a little more nuance, I guess. The fact that for its reputation, right? But it was still enjoyable, and I enjoyed watching it. And of course, you root for Dirty Harry more because of how unlikable this guy is, Right. And so, but I think you're never not rooting for Dirty Harry, right? You're always on his side, right?
Right. So. What I like about Andrew Robinson in it is I get the feeling, I don't know how on the money I am with this, but I almost get the feeling as if he just kind of created that like I can't imagine that's what they were thinking when they wrote it down. Like,
yeah, I don't
and then
know.
he's suddenly there, like, with his, and the whole, because he's got the perm as well and everything.
Yeah,
it's just like,
yes.
it's like he's like a psychotic Carrot Top or something, but like, but funnier than Carrot Top.
He's like shooting people in like broad daylight. And just like this guy doesn't like. If he was like, it's more like, because when I read the connection between Public Enemy and these movies, I was expecting more of like a cold, calculated killer that Dirty Harry was. That's why. So again, I didn't know what kind of killer Dirty Harry was tracking down. I thought it was more of like also a cat and mouse kind of like serial killer who you don't really know who he is, or he's really difficult to catch. But that's why I kept thinking like, why don't they just catch this guy? Like, he's so stupid.
I suppose he's
so over the top. So
he's smart enough to get himself beaten up, right? And stuff like that.
That was the one thing. I was like, oh, okay, he's a little bit of cunning. He could play the game a little bit there, but at the same time, it was sort of like, by that point, it was almost like he should have been caught or dead by that point anyway. But it was a fun movie, and I really enjoyed it. And I get the reputation. It was a bit of a shock how unnuanced it was. I expected more nuance, but it doesn't mean that it was necessarily bad. It was just not what I expected.
Right. Did you notice, Clint? I mean, this is from Clint Eastwood's production company as well, but Malpaso. Did you notice him doing his own stunts? There's like
a couple times. I think I did notice that you could really see his face when he was doing it.
When he jumps on top of that school bus.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, way to go, Clint.
Yeah.
Because he would have been, 40 or something?
40, 41,
Yeah.
So this actually just last month, May 31st, he turned 90. So happy birthday, Clint Eastwood. Yeah. 90 years old.
Yeah. So
still making movies.
I've always really liked Clint Eastwood, even though, like we said, obviously he's kind of he's Clint Eastwood, right? And take it or leave it, he doesn't give a fuck what we think, right? But did you notice on a marquee? There's a theatre marquee. You see, Play Misty for Me is playing the first film that he directed. Just prior to this, I think there's like a little. It's playing on a theatre.
No, he's great for himself.
Yeah. No, but he's really great as Dirty Harry Callahan. Obviously, I mean, no one else can really do this. I mean, I suppose Charles Bronson tried to do it for a while, but there is a cool to Clint Eastwood, isn't there? There is. I've always really liked his kind of. Not necessarily always his politics, but I like he has that kind of demeanor of like. I
don't give a fuck.
Well, he also seems genuinely like, in a way, he seems like tolerant, but just fucking leave me alone, kind of thing. Like, I don't care what you do. I really don't give a shit either way. But just fucking leave me out of it.
Leave me be. Let me do my thing.
That kind of
do your thing, I'll do mine. Yeah.
Frontier thing or whatever, and because apparently doesn't he like own like fucking half of Texas or something, like probably, he owns one half and Tommy Lee Jones does the other half, right? It's like but what's weird is that he is very much a when you think of people in that vein, you do tend to think more Arizona, Texas, that kind of, but he's a proper San Francisco kid, from what I understand. He's from that part of the world, right? So I think that's what kind of makes him interesting for me, is that kind of mixture. That it's not just that pure kind of. He's got something a little else mixed in there. That kind of Big Sur kind of Northern California thing mixed in, right? Some other bits. So you got Rennie Santoni as his new partner, right? Right. The other, I suppose
also a trope that like the getting thrown with the new partner, and the new partner is kind of a little bit of a little green, and I don't want to have to deal with this guy. So again, I didn't know if that was the beginning of that trope or writing the coattails of that trope.
Right. And the casual racism that he throws in as well, you know.
Right.
And again, that's something, I mean, it's something that comes and goes in waves. I mean, I get where I get it. It's never been a problem for me either. I get it. When you're so obviously not racist or you don't hate anyone, kind of playing around with it is, for you, it's funny and it's safe because you know you don't actually hate anyone, right? So it's like,
Right.
so you don't understand why. But, you know, certainly recently, taking the temperature of the times, not so acceptable at the moment.
Right.
Right. But you go back to movies in the 70s, and, you know, it's not unique to Dirty Harry. There was a lot of films like cop thrillers like this. There was a lot of racial stuff. And not, again, like here, not racist, just mentioning it, you know. There is racial tension on the streets. There's no doubt about it. Why not address it? And, you know, kind of play around with it or whatever. But, yeah, like I said, you have to take the temperature of the times, and I would imagine this is kind of the wrong side of that for our current times, maybe, right? For a little bit. You got Harry Guardino, John Mitchum in it, Albert Popwell. Interesting as well. Do you know Deborah Lee Scott?
No.
No
relation.
You do know Deborah Lee Scott. Deborah Lee.
No relation to me. I don't
right.
know her.
Well, she might be. You don't know if you don't know. Yeah. This probably means more to other people than myself, but I suppose she was on that sitcom Mary Hartman for years, and I don't. I thought you might know her. But you do know her because do you remember in the very first Police Academy, the one character who didn't make it into the sequels, the fat guy. I don't know what else more to say about him. There was like he was the one who. He was like he wasn't the accident prone, not the accident prone one who starts the riot at the end, but he's just like he's just the schlubby fat cop. That's it. You don't remember him, do you?
Played by Donovan Scott.
And in the very first, that you'll remember it in the first Police Academy film.
I really haven't seen Police Academy since I was a kid. So.
Okay, but you might remember this scene. His wife doesn't want him to go and join the Police Academy, so she jumps over the hedges to chase after him. Actually, she might be the wife of the accident-prone character, now I come to think of it. Anyway, she was in Police Academy 3 as well, because that character's wife decides to join the Police Academy.
Okay.
Anyway, she is the dead naked chick underground.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because, I suppose, that's the other thing as well. I suppose at the time when this was new, the Zodiac Killer was still kind of at large. Right? So
right.
Scorpio is basically the Zodiac Killer.
Yeah.
And you can see Dirty
Except
Harry.
a lot dumber.
Yeah, you can see Dirty Harry in David Fincher's brilliant Zodiac. Did you see Zodiac?
I did, yeah, with Mark Ruffalo. Yeah.
Fucking great film. Well, Mark Ruffalo's character in Zodiac apparently is who Dirty Harry Callahan is loosely based on.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So there's that as well. I think playing into the whole thing about, you know, I think people would have quite liked to have seen a Dirty Harry Callahan catch the Zodiac Killer.
Right, yeah.
But the burial
they didn't really go into why he called himself Scorpio.
No.
They talked about maybe his birthday was around that time, but they never did figure out why.
No, it's just because it's Zodiac spelled sideways, right? I mean that's the only thing, right? I mean,
it's one of the Zodiacs, right?
Yeah, there was a small spate of kind of Zodiac films, mostly low budget around. This would have been the bigger, and yeah, they don't spell it out, but at the time everyone would have known, right? Oh, that's the Scorpion. That's the Zodiac Killer, right? But he didn't do the burial underground. The burial, burying the girl underground with the oxygen running out. That was another case from a few years earlier. They did make a really good film about it, actually. The year after this, I think, called The Longest Night. I think it might have been a TV movie. It was surprisingly good, and it was that case. And yeah. So, so you mentioned you thought you had seen this movie, but you hadn't. Do you think you've seen any of the sequels? Like you said, 4 sequels.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I may have seen bits and pieces like on TV.
Right.
Like maybe like flipping through the channels kind of idea, but I don't think I've seen any of them all the way through.
Right. Yeah, Magnum Force, The Enforcer, Sudden Impact, and The Deadpool would have been the last one in the late 90s. And they get... Yeah, it's against the law of diminishing returns, right?
Right.
So the second one's pretty good. Magnum Force is a pretty good film. And then Enforcer, it's been a while, but it's not bad. And then Sudden Impact is fucking dreadful. And then by the time Deadpool comes out, Clint Eastwood's like campaigning for George H.W. Bush, and that's a super reactionary one. The Deadpool is the one where violent films and music videos are to blame. The killer is like a guy who makes music videos, and Guns N' Roses are in it.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yes, I think Liam Neeson might be the bad guy as well.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, before he was kind of famous. Yeah, I think it opens with them singing "Welcome to the Jungle."
Sounds about right. Yeah,
doing a music.
Oh yeah, you're right. Liam Neeson is. Yeah, Liam Neeson's in it.
"Welcome to the Jungle," of course, being the song with that awesome line. You think you're so cool? Why don't you just fuck off? Do you remember that in Welcome to the Jungle?
Oh, very well.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite albums.
Yeah. That always made me... that's like one of those moments, it just seems like so childish. Yeah. So they got kind of... Magnum Force is really good. I would recommend watching Magnum Force. But and it was remade... Of course it was remade in Hindi in 1973 as Coon Coon.
Okay.
Which is, I don't know about you, Ron, but I think that's a terribly racist title. Yeah. Unacceptable.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't condone that.
No, absolutely not. I haven't actually seen Coon Coon, but I would. I'd like to. I think I'd like to see I'm hoping there's singing and dancing in it as well. I'd like to see Dirty Harry with musical numbers. I think that would be quite fun.
They should make a musical version, I think.
Yeah. So there we go.
Actually, speaking of musical versions, I forgot to mention before that they actually made a musical version of American Psycho.
Oh, right. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, they did make a musical. Yeah, apparently it was not so popular, but it came out sort of at a time when there was a lot of other really popular. It came out not too long ago, but I think it came out at a time that there was some other more popular ones, like around like Hamilton time, I think.
Okay.
Really big, so I think it kind of got overshadowed a bit, but
right. Yeah, I can see it working. I mean,
yeah.
As long as
it's music heavy, so
yeah. As long as it's not Stephen Sondheim, then we're good, So that's his name, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Is that his name? Stephen
Sondheim?
Yeah, that's his name, right?
Whose name?
Stephen Sondheim's name.
Stephen Sondheim is a name, yes.
Yeah, okay, there we go. No, I thought I'd got his name wrong because you didn't.
Well, there is a composer, a musical composer named Stephen Sondheim.
Right, but he does musicals and stuff, right?
He does, yeah. But I don't know if he did. I don't think he did.
No. I was just using it as an excuse to take a dig at him because I don't like him.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. You didn't raise to the bait.
Right. Oh no, actually, it was. That's right. It was. A guy named Duncan Sheik actually did the music for American Psycho the musical. Okay.
Is he a name?
He's another one's like he did the Spring Awakening musical, so I think he's kind of up and coming.
Okay.
These days.
So, right. So it seems as if we watched 3 pretty good films in a row.
Yeah. And I thought Clive Davies did a pretty good job of connecting these movies. Again, I thought American Psycho was pretty close. Definitely that character is quite similar. Dirty Harry, I think it was more closer to the trope of the the detective that doesn't give a shit and plays by
Right.
his own rules than it is to Dirty Harry himself specifically.
Yes, yes.
So I think that's was a I think there are probably, I can't think of an example, but I think there's probably other detectives that follow that trope, which probably are closer to the
Right.
identity.
I think I was using it as a kind of totemic, because I think people would.
But
would know what I mean.
So I recommend. I guess I can reluctantly recommend the movie Spine Grinder. So
Yes, I think so.
The book, not movie, book Spine Grinder.
I think everyone. No, the movie hasn't been made yet. It's in the works. I think everyone should buy at least 10 copies each. I think is basically what you're saying.
Right. Is there going to be a sequel? Do you happen to know if there can be a part 2?
Well, I wouldn't know because I don't know anything about this fella. But I wouldn't be.
You had to guess.
I wouldn't. If I had to guess just randomly off the top of my head, I'd say he's about halfway through it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm guessing.
Right. Yeah. That's that's a random guess. So.
Yeah. But anyway, yes, hell of a guy by the sounds of it.
Nice. Yeah.
Do we have anything else to say? I don't think we do we?
No, I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I think we both covered it. Yeah, so 3 movies today. So thanks for bearing with us all the way to the end.
Yeah. But
What's a good quote to bring us out on, Clive? 3 movies to choose from. How about the noise, the Korean noise when you're really unhappy?
Chill with your old lady at the tilt. I got a